day 3 on this, and finally making progress. I had to just put the camera down, put my phone away, and get my mind right. I was losing focus yesterday, and it was costing me a lot of time. So a little bit more focus today, got a good night rest, and I just went ahead and tacked this all up so that I got a clean slate and I could start putting tube in this car for good. Everything is within spec. After we bashed the hell out of that shock tower, cut this whole front end off, and referencing the firewall, this is nice and square. So we have a clean slate again, and I can start throwing tube at this car for good. So next thing I want to do is the lower rad support on the bottom, kind of like a U shape. Make little tabs to both the power braces too, or the tension rod brackets, whatever you want to call it. So once we get that bolted up, we can throw the fenders back on and start mocking up the bash bar. So next thing I want to do, like I said, is that bottom rad support. So that guy's going to go right here, kind of tie it all together underneath. I think this is going to be a lot stronger than the factory one anyway. As I was saying before, these cars are meant to crumple to prevent the occupants from serious injury in the event of a crash. So I mean, it moved, and that's what they were supposed to do. But I'm hoping that tying it all together with some DOM is going to keep it nice and solid. I don't want to have any more bent frame rails, I'll tell you that. This chassis is brand new. It only has 300 kilometers on it. So yeah, anyway, I'll stop blabbing. Got a clean slate. I'm going to whip up that bottom tube now and see what I can come up with for anchor points for the power brace. So let's get on the tools. Alrighty guys, GoPro's been charging, and I can't wait to for the GoPro to charge so I can film everything. So I apologize about that, but we do have the bottom rad support in, and buddy, I am stoked. Making good progress this morning. Getting the car back to where it needed to be was really the most difficult task. I'm comfortable throwing tube in car once I know that they're where they need to be, and I can just carry on with my design. That being said, this tension rod was also pushed out of whack. So I got a little strap tied to my column, and a couple hits with a sledgehammer and some strength, some tension on it I should say, pulled it back. So now I gotta come up with brackets to tie those in. But other than that, we're making good progress. One other thing I'd like to say is, typically I polish all this tube before I start working with it, but we're so pressed for time right now that I don't have time to polish it, but I will give it a nice polish before I weld it. The reason I do that is because this tubing comes with a grease on it, also comes with a mill scale, and what that does is prevent rust, not only in shipping containers, but when they're sitting in a yard, so that when you get your tube, it's no rust on it. That being said, if you slam it all in there, get it all put together, and you just start welding, chances are inside of that tube there's going to be grease starting to build up and bubble. That creates impurities, and it also creates porosity. Your weld might look good on the top, but underneath it could be full of bubbles and what looks like an arrow bar on the inside. So that's considered a weld fault, and I don't need any more weld faults or anything like that. I'm used to following code, and I want everything that I do to be as strong as possible. So just more of controlling my environment and trying to produce the highest quality weld I can. So I'm going to make sure that this all gets polished before I weld it. So don't sleep on that. We're going to make sure it's nice and clean for you guys. So anyway, enough of me talking. I'm going to make those bottom rad clips off these power braces here, or tension rod brackets, however you call them. Tie that together, and then I can slam the rad in, put my fenders on, and start mocking up a bash bar. So this is all good. This is good news. So I'm gonna let this GoPro keep charging. It's only at like 20%. It's a little cold in here this morning, and it doesn't like the cold weather. So plug this guy back in, and I will catch up to you guys with another update here shortly. It's amazing what a good night rest can do. Got my mind right, and everything's falling into place again. As I was saying, the GoPro was charging, and I was just giving her. So upper rad tube's done, lower rad tube's done, frame rails are straight, shock tires where it needs to be, and my first conclusion of the radiator being bent was actually off. It might be a slight bit tweaked, but I mean it's sitting pretty much exactly where it was before. The hoses are where they need to be, so it's all good stuff. Making good progress. We also went ahead and did these tension rod brackets. They're just like little pieces of 4-inch channel. The bolts are welded right to them, so you don't have to fight with a wrench and a socket to try to get them out. It'll be as easy as factory to put back in. So I guess the next thing really to do would be relocating the power steering cooler in the front there somewhere. We put all our coolers in the front, as close as we can to the front. Not that it's going to get destroyed in impact, but because you want fresh air to be cooling your cooler. You try to hide those too much and you're just interfering with fresh airflow, and coolers need to breathe, so we like putting them up front where they're going to get the most air. But yeah, everything looks good. Doing a bit of brainstorming, and I'm thinking I might run a smaller chunk of tube, like really small, from this section here, kind of tie it into the front just to create a bit of a crumple zone in the event that we do take another side impact. I don't want to push all this shit out again. But yeah, I mean, that's the update. Sorry I wasn't filming. The GoPro is charging. We're fully charged now, so we will do a bit of time lapse and come up with a solution for that power steering cooler, and then start putting body panels back on it to come up with a bash bar. I've already used almost 24 feet of tube. That's hard to believe, I know, but I'm gonna have to run back the Team Tube and get more. My bash bar is gonna take probably easily another full stick at 24 feet. So that's the update though. It's looking good. It's still raw. Like I said, we gotta polish all this stuff before I weld. But yeah, I'm gonna get back on the tools here and get that power steering cooler mounted up. Simple solution for the rad tabs. The other rad support was actually sitting a little bit lower, so I had to kind of make like a, hard to explain. I kind of had to recess them to follow the curvature of the tube. In this scenario, these are pretty much flat, so it's a simple solution, and it's efficient. It's gonna work. So tomorrow I got to get more riv nuts. I'm out of riv nuts, but I like to riv nut all these in, and just makes it easy. I don't like to weld nuts on there or anything. Pop some riv nuts in, remove it with a bolt. Very easy. So rad's in, power steering cooler's in, upper rad support's done. That shock tower's been pulled out. New frame rails for the tube. Bottom rad support, and then those crumple zones. And we're back on track. Next thing I'm gonna do is make some slip fits to slide in there. Like I was saying before, this is 1.75 inch DOM and 120 wall, I believe, and I'm going to be using 0.95 1.5 to slide in there, and I'll trim them to fit. And then I run a tiny it's like a 1/4 inch trailer pin right here, and because this is a slip fit, this tube runs into the frame rail noticeably far, so during impact that pin will snap and that bash bar will just get shoved into the tube, and snapping that pin is going to take most of the inertia of the hit before the rest of the car starts crumpling. So that's kind of like the weak link of the setup. It doesn't affect the strength at all because this is mechanical tubing. When you slide a 1.5 inch DOM in there, there's like no tolerance at all. It's a perfect fit. You could use this stuff for hinges, really. It's mechanical tubing. They're meant to slide in and out of each other, so that's how I like to run my bash bars. Other people have other opinions. Just to kind of tangent off that, if you're welding your bash bar straight to your car, you got to consider in an impact, if you overbuild that bash bar and you tie it into the frame rails and you weld it all solid, what's going to happen when you get in an accident is it's going to move somewhere. So if this is really strong back here, or in the front here, and it's weak in the back, basically your whole frame rail is just going to go, and then you have extreme damage back there, and it's going to be a nightmare to repair. Whereas if this stuff up here takes a good hit and it can kind of move around, It's better to be able to just rebuild the bash bar than have to cut your whole friggin' car apart. So that's kind of my theory on it. Same thing with bolting. Bolts work good too in some cases. I know Z33s have pretty stiff chassis, but what I've seen in impact is, let's say you get hit from the side, all it does is rip those bolts right out, and it just, you have massive holes, they shear it off, and to each their own. I know that there's different ways of doing it. If you're going for a bolt-on application, obviously a bolt-on bash bar is going to be a good solution for you. This is how I make my stuff, and just kind of giving you guys some insight on the experience that I've had building cars over the years. So this car looks good. I'm extremely excited about where it's at and how it looks straight again. Yeah, basically I'm just gonna bang out my hood, pop that on top, and then get those slip fits prepped and kind of slide those in, and then I can start the bash bar hopefully tomorrow. So everything takes a little bit more time when you're by yourself. Sometimes I wish I had 4 hands, but finally got this car zip tied up. It's looking like a car again. Woo! One thing I noticed right away is the gap on the hood, and what that's from is my new crumple zones are a little too wide, so I'm going to assess that and try to get them a little closer. Good news is it's about the same on each side, so you know that we're I don't know, symmetrical. So yeah, the bumper is put back on. You can see the paint is a little tarnished, to say the least. But again, I like to keep drifting sustainable, and I run OEM panels for a reason. This bumper is completely fine. It might not look like it, but there's no cracks in it. The paint's dicked, but it's in one piece. My fog lights and my signal light aren't, but that's a different story. Even the fender, I mean, it's dicked. I wouldn't use it if I'm trying to go for any kind of car show, but at least it keeps the car looking like a one piece. But sorry I blab so much. I'm just speaking what's on my mind. So you can see how far these tubes come out. Well, it's probably dark in there. We have probably maybe 2 inches before it touches the bumper. So I have a little mark right around here. That's going to be a starting point, and I can start building from there. If there is anything else that I need to change, I can cut it back a bit more, but I think that's a good point to start. So I'm going to cut those off the same length on each side, and I can put my slip fits in and start mocking up a bash bar. So one other thing I did notice, which is good, is this bottom dam is actually touching my cooler, and on my other chassis it was doing the same thing. So we're approximately right where it was stock, which is good. But yeah, I gotta cut the zip ties off, take all this stuff off again, and yeah, start coming up with a bash bar design. So I'm gonna put the camera down, or actually we might have enough battery now to do a little time lapse. I'll do a time lapse of me taking this all off again, and I'm gonna cut those to length. So I got the bumper removed, and I have these frame rails marked out. I'm giving you guys all my tricks of the trade. Hopefully you don't just rob them and take all my fab work, but I'm a nice guy. This is called a wraparound. If you're working with tube or pipe, this is going to be your best friend. This will help you make straight cuts every single time. So I found my my length here, and basically just use my wraparound to make a nice straight line on both sides. Like I said, I like when stuff's true, and if there's any kind of tolerance in it, I get picky. So yeah, I'll mark those all out. Next thing I'm gonna do is zip cut those off and start marking up a bash bar. So let's do that. A little Bodie clip there for you. So I got these guys cut off to the elevation. They're nice and or the depth, I should say. They're nice and square, following the firewall to the upper rad support, and then these guys here. So everything's nice and square. Next thing I want to do is just cope these guys to fit 1 3/4. So just cope one in, slide them in, and then I could start coming up with my uprights and start tacking stuff on. So it's just a matter of coping those, slide them back in. Then I gotta put my bumper back on, and then I can see how high I can make my bash bar. So we're making progress. Slow and steady, but making progress. Alright, so some zip ties and some little bit of effort later. We had the bumper on, and I was able to determine my depth on my new frame rails. So those are chopped. We have our slip fits done, our repurposed 1.5 inch, as you guys saw earlier. I had a couple different designs in mind. I'm coming up with this design here. Basically going to be like a little hoop to kind of follow the bottom rad support. So fortunately I don't have any more than 2 hands, but I'm going to tack that up and then I'll show you guys what it looks like. But just a lot of methodical thinking involved, so I didn't really time lapse that, but we are going to get this tacked up and I'll show you what it looks like shortly. Alrighty guys, got to give you a bit of an update here. Truth be told, 403 Street German was here and we were doing a little video that we kind of threw together, so wasn't really rolling the GoPro, didn't want to get in his way at all, but I'll show you where we're at now, and hopefully you guys think it's cool. I'm pretty stoked. So moving forward, it looks a little like that's a super big bend. I know it's kind of silly looking, but it serves a purpose. We had to tie into these slip fits, and that's pretty much the only way it would go. If you stand back though, it does look pretty cool, and once it's all painted I think it'll flow a lot better. But yeah, basically once we got that bottom bar in, I was able to come up with a solution for the top one, and it really just kind of holds the bumper. This section here is touching, so if we're getting hit again, it's going to be hitting the bumper. My last bash bar was more or less for looks, where this one is more for function. You can see it even runs underneath the fender line here. So again, if we're taking side impact, I'm hoping that this tube's just going to go yoink, and I'll be able to save the rest of my car. So we have multiple crumple zones in the side now, so any kind of side impact should be able to take a hit, and the rest of the car will be okay. But yeah, moving forward, I've just kind of started triangulating some of these areas, running tube back to the slip fit, keep it nice and sturdy. I use my bash bar as a jack point. Next thing I want to do is I can just throw something in here just to brace the upper rad support to the new frame rail, and then that way everything's triangulated, and I think we're going to be in business. Yeah, sorry, I'm just trying to get caught up here on where I left off with you guys. The other thing I was thinking is we have these CNC cut logos. They're pretty rad. Shout out to Fabrication in Calgary. I'll throw his IG up here somewhere. You check him out. If you guys ever need anything laser cut, you make sure to contact him and he'll help you out. But these logos I want to use. Should have done this years ago. We can start trademarking our work, but I'm thinking a couple of these guys, one there and one on the other side, will look pretty cool. I'm also going to do some dimple dyes kind of in this area, just for looks. It's not really going to do anything. I just want to have the sex appeal, if you will. But I think we're making good progress here. I'm really happy with the results that we're starting to get now. It took a while to get the car straight, but once it was straight, I was able to just start throwing tube at it, and that's what we do. And I'm able to pick up on some lost time. So I'm gonna get some more of these little braces done here to tie into the frame rail from the upper rad support. And yeah, once it's all done, I can start pulling stuff off and basically start welding everything out. I think next video, or second part of this one I should say, I'll start putting in the lights and making sure I have fender mounts and clips for the bumper. But that's pretty much it, man. It's kind of hard to see these tubes here, but in person, look, I'm looking through the screen right now and it looks kind of funny, but in person it does look better, and these tubes are a little bit more visual. Kind of helps flow. I know that looks just like a big friggin' chin. Kind of ugly, but like I said, I'm going for function on this one as opposed to form. Once you slide the bumper on, it looks really cool. That lower tube is exposed, So again, we can use that as a jack point, and it'll look cool protruding from the bumper. I'm never going to run tow hooks outside of my bumper ever again. That impact, Raymond's car would have been fine had I not had tow hooks protruding out of my bash bar. So we're going to have probably fabric tow hooks that kind of wrap around this tube front and come out of the bumper. Then in the event of a accident, or if we go off track, Tokyo can still reach them easily, and they're not going to hit anybody's car ever again. So lots of little learning curves. You never stop learning. So anyway, stop blabbing. I'm going to tack these onto the upper rad support. Triangulate this a little bit more. Not only for style points, but again, this is for function, round 2, not form. Like I said, my first one looked really cool, but didn't serve its purpose. So we'll throw this in the saw, cut these angles, little copes on them, and then tack those in, and kind of show you guys what it looks like from there. And then we can pull the bash bar off and start coming up with bumper brackets and headlight brackets, and hood pin brackets too. So main structure's there, and we're making good headway. So I'm gonna get back on the tools here right now. Malcolm's over there stacking dimes, yo. Yeah, that's what it looks like without fenders on it. Like I said, this bash bar, the curvature of it, I'm not too keen on, but it is going to be 100% for purpose, function over form, and like you can see how these kind of intersect. This is my new crumple zone, basically touching the fender with this and with this. So we get hit on the side, this will bend, and this will also bend, and I can just cut it off, make another bash bar. Good to keep going. So the next thing I want to do is throw some more tacks all around it. That way everything's not going to move, and I can start disassembling it all again. So pulling the coolers off, pulling the rad out, and then give everything a good polish. And when I pick up next time, or next day I should say, I can just focus on welding. Once it's welded out, we can come up with the headlight brackets and the hood pins and bumper bracket. But the end of the tunnel is near. I'm really happy about all this. It's not the most ideal situation. I didn't want to have to cut my whole car apart, but I'd rather make it true and keep drifting with my friends than try to send a car that's out of whack. So this is good stuff. I'm going to be putting some dimple dies in this section, like I said earlier, just for looks, and maybe a small strip here, again, just for looks. No one will ever see it, but I'm not a huge fan of the way that this is looking. I like my work to kind of flow and look good, but at this point, I need function over form. So yeah, we'll throw a couple dimple dies in there just to keep it classy, but you'll never see them anyway. I'm gonna put this camera down, strip this car down again, and throw some tacks all over it. So maybe I'll time lapse that for you.